What if I told you the secret to building multiple income streams isn't just about hustle, it's about strategy? Today, I'm sitting down with Sophia Kokileff, a CPA, ICF certified coach, and someone who's mastered the art of weaving together multiple careers without burning out. She's not just crunching numbers, she's helping corporate professionals build value aligned businesses, exploring AI in accounting, and completely redefining what it means to have a portfolio career. If you've ever felt stuck choosing between financial security and freedom, or wondered how to actually build multiple streams strategically, this conversation is for you. I'm Priya, and this is Empower Her for the multi income woman who refuses to choose. Let's get into it. Hi, welcome to Empower Her. My name is Priya, and I have a very special guest with me today, Sophia. Sophia is a CPA, and she has had a lot of coaching work. She does a lot of coaching work as well. But I'm really excited to have her on my podcast because this year we want to focus on financial empowerment for women, and especially for the multi income woman who is working on maybe side hustles or trying to create her own business while working on her full-time job. So we'll have a conversation around how someone can do that, whether it's from a financial side of things or business side of things. But before we do that, Sophia, can you give us a background and tell us about yourself?
Yeah, thanks so much, Priya, for having me. Lovely to be on here. So I started my career as an accountant. I jumped in right away into public practice and got my CPA and worked as well in industry, in the fintech industry specifically. And somewhere along my career, I tried to kind of figure out a way where I could merge my passions with what I was doing. So that's what prompted me into getting my coaching certification. So I'm also an ICF certified coach alongside being a CPA. It kind of started with this journey of self exploration and figuring out, on top of this, finance brain side of me, what else do I enjoy? And it really came down to like self development and both professional and personal. And so I did the certification, and I've been also coaching one on one, doing some organizational coaching as well, leadership development type work, team coaching, a big mixed bag of things. But yeah, really found a way to kind of merge everything that I enjoy doing into one big multi passionate career, which is what I call it.
Yeah, that's amazing. And that's something that, although it might sound very common these days that a lot of people are pursuing side hustles, but I still feel like people don't understand how that works.
Hmm.
Um, because a lot of people think that, yeah, sure, I can maybe, have a hobby besides whatever my full-time job is, or maybe it's going to be very hard to juggle different kind of things, so you're not going to be able to focus your 100% into each of those paths that you are on. So that's why I kind of like wanted to talk today about how your experience has been through that. So let's talk a little bit about what made you think, when you were doing your CPA or after, that you wanted to add a coaching certificate to your credentials.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, it kind of stemmed from a bit of a look at my hobbies and what I enjoy doing outside of work. So for me, that was reading a lot of self development books. And in reading those, not only applying them to my personal life, but like, what do I want out of my professional life too? So when I was reading those books, there were some that I read about leadership, and I was like, well, if I'm on this path in finance, how can I then become more of a leader? Because that seems to be something that interests me and the route that I want to take. And so, that's kind of where it started. It was kind of this curiosity of, well, I really enjoy doing this. I can see how doing more of this in my personal life will fulfill me, but also it could help in work. And that's where I kind of went, okay, how do I now add this into my career? And I think like the best way of looking at that for people who are in that kind of situation of figuring out, I'm in this role or this career and I want to either add a skill or I want to do something I'm more passionate about. Like, how can you kind of blend those things? So for me, it was like, well, a coaching certification where I'm
Mhm.
able to get certified in that and be able to coach others on their career journeys and their own professional and personal development could be a really great path. Plus, it does help with the leadership skills for myself progressing in
Mhm.
finance. So I kind of found a way to this like kind of common ground where I could combine the personal and the professional piece in terms of where I was headed. Because at that point, I didn't quite know, with getting a certification like this, do I want to be a 100% full time coach? Do I want to continue 100% in finance? I didn't have that clarity. And so, like,
Mhm.
kind of finding a way to do both has been really helpful for me in my journey. But that's how it stemmed at the beginning.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think that's very interesting. So to say, in like, if I had to summarize, it's basically for someone who's maybe trying to figure it out. I mean, maybe you're already doing something that, you enjoy, that you can definitely, turn into something that can, lead to a revenue stream. And so kind of like looking around on what you enjoy doing, and, maybe you're doing, maybe you're writing, maybe you are, again, like coaching people on your free time. So it's possible that you're already doing it and you enjoy something like that. But if not, then maybe, someone can start with um, developing those skills with trying different things. So whether it's like, reading different kind of books on different subjects, or maybe meeting different kinds of people. But yeah, I think that's something that I would say that someone can start with. Is that fair to say? Yeah, yeah. Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah. Definitely starting with like experimentation. Like if you are in a place, and I have a lot of clients in this place where they're, they've done education in something, they've started their careers, and then they're like, all right, something's not quite right. Like I don't feel fully happy or fulfilled here. What's your next step? It's really doing that experimentation. So go take like a creative writing class, try out improv, do something that's totally different. That, of course, it has to be something that somewhat excites you and you would want to do or you'd be interested in. But another thing that I say is really interesting to look back to is childhood. So, like for me, how I also knew coaching and kind of teaching and that side of things was for me is I used to like line up my stuffed animals in my room and teach them lessons. And my mom would walk in and like see me teaching. I didn't have siblings to torture to do that too. But yeah, so that was kind of like a sign that, you know what, intuitively, that's something that I am passionate about and that I enjoy doing. I enjoy that kind of teaching and helping people. And so in today's world, that's what we call facilitation, which I wouldn't have known back then. But yeah, looking to those kind of experiences of what interested you and what are the things that that you're drawn to in today's world. And I think the best kind of piece of advice also is don't think right away about how it's going to make you money, because you can get
Mhm.
very like stuck when you're trying to,
Mhm.
okay, I like writing, but
Mhm.
AI is coming up now and I'm not going to ever have a job as
Mhm.
a writer or a chance at it, right? So don't
Mhm.
let that kill the initial experimentation and passion that might be trying to come out. Explore
Mhm.
it regardless, because you never know how you're going to be able to monetize that. I have examples from my clients too, where it's like the craziest way where they've taken a passion, their previous corporate experience, and they've mixed it together into this like perfect business or career now that's come out that didn't even exist before. They innovated it themselves. They made it themselves, and
Mhm.
they're like the industry leaders in that now. So yeah, I would say don't get caught up in how it makes money. That comes later, but really
Mhm.
focus on what truly feels good and brings you joy and excites you in the now.
Mhm. Is there any example that comes on top of your mind from your clients that, where that happened?
Absolutely, yeah. So I've had some clients where they've had a very traditional kind of path, and then they've found that through let's say teaching yoga or Pilates or breath work, like those kind of areas where they're then able to, again, at first you don't think that you could become a practitioner in that, but you get the certifications and you start slow. So those are some examples. And then I've also had examples of someone specifically in my mind, one of my clients, he was in finance. So he was working in like the mortgage space, and then he really, really loved writing. So what he did in the end, he got a certification in a form of writing, and then blended it and ended up writing for, top mortgage experts in that space. And so that's like a very unique, unique way of blending like something he was passionate about with the experience he had and he already had that credibility in. Now, from day one, if he sat there and said, I like writing, he would have never come up with that idea unless he kind of went on and explored it and saw where it took him. And then it kind of came after that. Yeah.
Yeah, so the key is basically to just start and go onto that path, and opportunities or ideas can come in on its own, and it could be something that you could have never imagined before, right? So
Absolutely. Yeah. It's all about taking those first, like, very, very small steps that don't seem significant in the moment when you're taking them. It's like, is this even leading me anywhere? But like, you have to start taking those in order to get to the big thing that you envision or that you want in the end.
that's true. That's true.
Mm-hmm.
And then when it comes to your clients, what's the most common, struggle that you've seen in them, that they're usually going through?
Yeah, it's probably it's kind of a mix of two that I'm thinking about, but one of them is uh, I'm in this career and I've put so many years towards it, right? I've put in the investment in school, I've put in the time to grow in this, and now I feel like I've wasted all this time if I decide to pivot, if I decide to do something else. So it's kind of like that sunk cost fallacy that you've probably heard of. um,
Mm,
where it's like, well, all of that experience actually got you to where you are now, and without it you wouldn't even be here questioning, whether that fulfills you or not, or whether you want to add something else or not. So that's one of the first kind of struggles that I see a lot, is like, how am I supposed to move forward, feeling like I just wasted all this time on this other thing. And then I guess another one that kind of comes to mind is um, when they actually think of that next idea that they want to do, like, how do I figure out time management around that and actually make it happen? So if I'm working a full-time role, well, how am I building this additional side income, whether it's a side hustle or a side business? How am I doing that alongside this job? So that can be also another big struggle that can, kind of make people feel stuck and then not take the next steps. But yeah, those would be probably the most common ones.
definitely. Yeah, I think, I feel like that's like the most common struggle, like even I've seen in my own personal life as well, where you see that all this time, as you said, or education that you've got, you see it as like going to waste if you kind of want to change careers. But as you said, that's not true. So it's all about perception as well. So yeah, yeah, definitely.
Absolutely. Yeah. I
Okay.
think that
And
mindset shift, I was just gonna say last thing, that mindset shift is like a huge piece to work on, like especially in something like coaching or even self-coaching yourself, is like overcoming that, because unless you overcome that, it will be very hard for you to move forward feeling that level of guilt that you spent all that time and that it's gone to waste. So you really have to like try to reframe it before you can move forward. That's usually the first area that I spend with clients that work one-on-one. It's like, it can take a couple sessions sometimes, but like we gotta kind of get past that to get to the next stage. Yeah,
That's true. I mean, mindset is the most important one because
absolutely.
unless and until you have the right mindset, you're not gonna go through all the way with if you're committing to like a career transition or something else. So yeah, that's a really important piece. Um, and then that's really interesting that you have a finance background as well. So um, how does that play into your coaching? How do you think that affects how you approach your clients, or talking to them about solutions? Yeah, if you can talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the finance background in general, it being a field where you need a very analytical mind, um, I think that's really helped me in my coaching because I find like even when I'm running through a session, I'm very good at like tying it through till the end and having that integration piece. And I really think that comes from, even the like audit days of doing things thoroughly or just, working in fintechs, right? Like any area of finance, you do need that analytical part and like curiosity and really asking why on a lot of things. So I think it's helped me with that. It's also helped me have this kind of like I'm trying to think of the exact word here. Sort of like a credential behind what I'm doing. So, like, I have worked in corporate all those years. I can relate very much with clients when they are going through these types of transitions because I've been through them myself. So, I think that's also the biggest way where it makes me very relatable or makes me able to relate with clients as well. Yeah, those would probably be the top ways that
Mhm.
that finance kind of background helps with that.
Mm.
I see more and more parallels actually, like as I continue to do the work, even just like having gone to school all those years, like the discipline that it takes to study and to go through all of that, like you need that as a foundation if you're starting a business or if you're pivoting into another career, and it makes it so much easier the second time around than the first time you were doing it. So yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, that is very true. Um, and then I think the most common thing that people, really think about when they're, kind of going through the same thing between, adding another career or transitioning is the fear of burnout as well. So, since you're obviously going to be, spending more time or energy into a new thing, or maybe even something that you're already doing, but now you're thinking of expanding it, how do you manage it? Or what lessons have you learned during that time?
hmm Yeah, well, I'm gonna be honest, not perfect with it. It's still something that I work through till this day, and I do have periods of time where I still end up burnt out. It's like, oh gosh, didn't I learn it from last time? But
Yeah.
I think it's really like an ongoing journey. For me, what really helps is like trying to get very good at managing time, and with the free time that I do have, doing things that are actually energizing and truly restful. So for me, that does not mean scrolling social media. Like if I sit on
Mm,
Instagram and I'm like scrolling for an hour, I realize
mm,
that's draining me more than it is energizing me. And so I
mm,
need to be very careful for myself. If I have like an
mm,
hour or two in the evening to unwind, it's more like sitting down with a book that I really enjoy watching,
mm,
sitting down for dinner with my husband and just talking about our days. Like that is more
mm,
restorative for me than
mm.
watching Netflix or like scrolling Instagram. And for some people, it might be energizing. Like
Yes.
there's, sometimes you watch reels and it's funny and that,
Yeah.
brings you a bit of joy. I'm not saying like not to do that at all, but to be
Mhm.
like very aware of the time that you do have off, like how are you actually using that to restore? Because I do
Mhm.
believe like if you're filling up your cup back after you
Mhm.
take a full day of working and you're actually filling up your cup with things that energize you, you'll have more of that energy to give, and it's a cycle after that that just
Mhm.
works much better than if you're like you're getting drained on the work side and then you're also getting drained on the personal side, and it's just a
Mhm.
negative. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, I think
Mm.
that's really good advice because, yeah, we don't really think about what's, draining our energy or, energizing us. We just kind of, go with the flow, or, we go into kind of like a habit as well, even though it might not be good for us. Um, but yeah, I think that's really good to kind of reflect on. Um, and then when it comes to, um, you know, let's talk a little bit more financial things. But I think when it comes to any kind of financial advice, a lot of accountants or financial advisors, they um, talk, or obviously they consider a lot of things, including financial risk. So, is that something that you also consider when, whether we're talking about multi-income streams or someone who's career transitioning? How does that play into those things?
Mhm. Yeah, so financial risk, I think, is very subjective for the person. Like, everyone has a different level of risk tolerance. For me, I would consider myself to be pretty risk averse. And so I like to make sure, like, if I'm ever going into a new venture, that there is, a good amount of like emergency fund, let's say, that's piled up for me to be able to do that. Or, even talking to like the resources that you have in your available environment, right? Like, just kind of um, understanding a bit of a plan, because like sometimes when you jump without much of a plan, it can also put a lot of pressure on you for being able to immerse yourself in the work and make it as successful as possible. And so, for me personally, it's really nice to have a bit of that kind of cushion, that, I'm giving myself X amount of months, let's say, to try to build this to what I want it to be. And then if not, I have like kind of this plan B afterwards. Now, that
Mhm.
works for some people. Other people are very risk tolerant. So, they can jump and they can kind of figure things out. It's very up to the individual. So I think more than anything, it's important to understand which versions of those you are, and what you're most comfortable with, and then kind of try to create your reality around that. Because as nice as it is to look at someone who's very risk tolerant and makes those big jumps, if that's not your personality, or you haven't kind of reached that level of comfortableness with risk, then it can be like very, very tricky navigating that, right? Because then you feel bad. It's like, well, how come I can't make things happen when that person can, right? So you kind of start playing that
Mhm.
comparison game, which I've
Mhm.
seen people do. So it's really important to just like then tune into like your own personal level with that, and what you kind of do to create the environment that you need to best succeed, knowing that, right? So being really honest with yourself about it, and then making things into your reality for that. Yeah.
Mhm.
Does that
Mhm.
answer the question?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. So, yeah, in this case, the first step for someone would be to find out what kind of, risk level they're at, like how
Hmm.
tolerant they're with the risk, and then, make whatever decision they need to.
Absolutely.
Um,
And it's gonna also depend a lot on, do you have a family already, and like responsibilities, and people that are relying on you, right? Like, I don't want to sit here and say that person is not going to have a different experience than someone with like not much responsibility, right? Like, it's a
that's
reality,
true.
and if that's your reality, it doesn't mean that you're steps behind. It just means you have to do things a little bit differently, and that's okay.
Different.
It's going to be unique for everyone, and there's no right or wrong. But yeah.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Um, and when it comes to, your clients, what kind of, money related or financial related mistakes you've seen people make? That's like the most common, I would say.
Financial mistakes. Yeah, I can't say off the top of my head I have any examples from like my own clients.
Mhm.
But I will say maybe one just kind of more general one that I've seen, and like I've even experienced myself very, very early on, like in my career, is lack of budgeting or really understanding where your money is going.
Hmm.
There's this quote, and I forget. I know that Cody Sanchez has said it on podcast, and I've heard it, but I don't know who originally said it. Money is like a mistress. If you don't pay her any attention, she'll leave you. And
Hmm.
I found that to be really true as a pattern in people that I've seen in my life. Where yeah, it's if you're not paying attention to where the money's going, and you don't know how much you're making and how much you're spending, that's like a really basic thing that if you don't have that, then likelihood is you're going to end up in a position in debt or things like that. And
Hmm.
so yeah, that's like one big piece I'd say is a basic, like really understand where your money is going, where it's coming from, how much, and then like how you can also expand on that, right? So if you want certain things in your life, it's like doesn't necessarily mean budgeting like lower your expenses, but it could even be an opportunity for you to realize where can I make more money so then I can be more expansive and, make all the realities that I want to make in my life happen.
Hmm.
So yeah, that would probably be the top one. And I've been budgeting for like years now, and I'm in there typically at least every month, if not like every week, where I'm just kind of taking a look at where things are, and it's a very helpful skill, especially for the risk piece that we were talking about.
Hmm. Hmm. Definitely. Um, and then let's talk a little bit about, any other financial related things that people need to be aware of before, they step into maybe, building their own business, those kind of things. Um, is there also any kind of like advice you have related to taxes or anything like that as well?
Mm. Yeah, whenever you start your own business, it means there's a lot of deductible business expenses. So, also something that I think not many people pay a lot of attention to. Like, there is a lot that you can deduct. So, yeah, I would say if you don't have that knowledge yourself, either try to learn it, try to research. I mean, the best resource nowadays to easily do that is ChatGPT. If you just ask it, hey, what are some examples of business expenses that I could deduct? Right here are some basic ones that I have in general, and it
Mhm.
could probably help as a first step. But then otherwise, talk to like a tax advisor or tax consultant just to better understand where you might be able to leverage more of those deductible expenses, because they can add up a lot and lower the taxes that you have to pay at the end.
Mhm.
Sometimes to the point where you don't pay any or you get a refund, right? Especially if you're like really early in your business and you're doing it alongside other income. Yeah, that would probably be my advice. I'm curious, have you come across any yourself?
I mean, there's definitely a lot of questions in my mind because I'm kind of like navigating in the same boat where I am kind of like trying to build my own business, but I also have in my mind that okay, how does that play into self-employment, and also if I have maybe a part-time job that I'm doing as well. So you have to kind of like figure that out as well, but that's very recent, and that's the reason why I asked, because when I figured out, oh, I also actually need to think about taxes as well,
Hmm.
and how that would play into my plan. So
Hmm.
that's when I was like, okay, I need to definitely have a section of taxes in my plan as well. So yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. And also, as you're earning, if it's a side business or something, as you're earning that income, it's not getting paid to you like an employer would, right? Where
Yeah,
they're already
exactly.
deducting the taxes. So, like, you got to make sure to understand what income bracket am I at? And by the end of the year, how much do I forecast? And therefore, how much should I put
Mhm.
aside for those tax
Mhm.
installment payments? That's also like a
Mhm.
very underlooked area that people kind of forget about. And then when you do your taxes, it's like, this massive tax bill. So to avoid
Yeah.
that, yes, definitely do a little bit of planning ahead of time.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm. Definitely. Um, and this is kind of like a pivot, but we definitely have to talk about, as you mentioned, ChatGPT, so AI, um, and how that plays into everything that we're talking today. Because obviously, we cannot ignore AI. It's a huge part of our lives now. But I'm seeing how it's kind of like starting to play into, different careers. And, some people are kind of like scared of it, some people are embracing it. But it's really interesting to see how, people are navigating that. But how do you see AI playing into financial and coaching field?
Yeah, interesting question. Definitely there's a mixed dialogue out there about AI right now. There's people who are terrified of it and what it's going to do to us and our jobs, but
Mhm.
others who are trying to capitalize on it being a tool. And I feel like I try to fall into the latter, just because I do think of AI more as a tool, especially having used it for like I've tried to use it for things like coming up with problems when I'm teaching in a school, for example, in a university. It's like coming up with exam questions or something, and it's not perfect on those like really technical areas. So I don't think it's at the point where we should fear it completely being able to replace a job, but we should be using it as a tool to help optimize processes, make them more efficient, save time. And so, like, one example of that in accounting finance is when you have like month end where you're trying to close books and get those financial statements out. There's a lot of processes that go behind that and a lot of Excel sheets and things that you're doing, and there are AI agents nowadays that you can actually train to do those more mundane tasks for you, so you can focus more on the review and that higher level understanding. um,
Mhm.
that's not to say that you should forgo or we should ever forgo understanding the basics. 'Cause I think that's like the biggest danger is like us just
Mhm.
ending up trusting AI so much that it's like we don't even need to understand the fundamental of what it's doing, right? In order to review it, you do have to understand that piece. So
Right.
I think there's always going to be value in those fundamentals and people learning them. But I
Mhm.
also see people getting ahead in jobs and careers are going to be those that do try to leverage it to save them time and
Mhm.
allow them to focus and grow faster into those like higher value add areas, more strategic
Mhm.
thinking areas that they can do, where AI is taking over the more mundane kind of tasks. So yeah,
Mhm.
that's my high level take on it.
Mhm. Mhm. Definitely. And what do you think about AI in coaching? How do you think that would affect, any kind of coaching, that, obviously the work that you're doing right now? Um,
Mm,
because I feel like, coaching isn't too technical. It's very subjective as well. It's
hmm
very dependent on human to human interaction as well. But yeah, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I think AI definitely, I don't want to say it will ever replace coaches, but I think in some element there are people that are using it for like as a
Mhm.
therapist, right? Or as a bit of a coach. Um,
Mhm.
the thing though that I don't think it's going to be able to replace, and I honestly think this is why people still work with coaches and therapists, is that human to human interaction. Um, yes, you've probably heard we're kind of in a loneliness epidemic a little bit, and people are lonely and they're sitting at home. And, how much does talking to a robot fulfill that feeling of loneliness? Maybe it can a little bit, but I really
Mhm.
think there's still an important role for, coaches and therapists and all sorts of people in those types of roles um, that AI just won't be able to fill. And so I kind of see this industry and myself as a coach actually growing even more,
Mhm.
because we are going to get even more lonely and lonely if we're continuing to just sit at home on our phones and our laptops, and we're going to want more of that, especially in-person interaction, which I think is on the rise more and more now. And
Yeah.
so for me with like coaching, I'm also thinking about ways that I can create more of that connection with clients, whether it's one to one or in group settings, but more of in like in real life experience. Um,
Mhm.
and because like a lot of my clients, I do Zoom, but then I try to also see them if I can, if they're in a different city, or if they're in Vancouver, I try to at least meet up with them, just to kind of foster that connection, because I find it's much more powerful than anything that AI can give you, right? AI can ask you questions back like a coach, but I also find there isn't that like level of integration that a human can give you.
That's true. That is very true. Um, and for some listeners, if they're having that kind of a pressure, which I think a lot of us face sometimes, is to pick one path and just specialized in that path, and have that expertise. How would you advise them, or what would you say to them?
So if someone's feeling the pressure of picking one path, um,
Hmm.
I think there's value in initially picking a path, just because if you don't pick any path, then you're not really on any path at all, right? So you kind of got to start at first with like something. I'm not saying it has to be one path, and then you give up all your passions and all your like side stuff that you also enjoy doing. But try to kind
Hmm.
of pick something as your main thing first. And I'm talking specifically to early career goers who are maybe just coming out of university. Like, pick that kind of one path, allow yourself still space and time to explore other paths alongside. And I'm not saying you can never pivot, you can always pivot to something else, but creating kind of this foundation in one area, number one, allows you to actually see if that path is something that you enjoy and that you want to continue down. B, it can also help a lot with that financial foundation as you go on and explore other areas that might be harder to monetize, right? That you really enjoy doing. And so, yeah, I think with choosing a path, I definitely like that pressure got to me when I was choosing outside of university, and it was like I just went with accounting and finance. But I believe it served me very well compared to if in that moment I didn't choose any path at all, or I tried to kind of explore
Hmm.
everything at once. Um,
Hmm.
I think you can to a degree,
Hmm.
but it helps to kind of have that foundation. And another thing I'll say, especially for career women, or men out there who are early on in their careers. And by early on, I mean like up till early to mid 30s, I would say is still pretty early. You have
Hmm.
so much time ahead of you. Like, you don't have to have it all figured out. So if you start down one path, and then you're like 25 or 26, and you're like, I feel like this isn't it. I want to try something else. You have so much time, and I think we forget about that because we look to social media and people that
Hmm.
seem to have everything figured out at such young ages.
Hmm.
Might appear that way also on the surface, but a lot of the time isn't the case. And we don't have to have it all figured out so early. Life is like a very long journey. If you look to our parents and grandparents, like, they had whole lives of like careers and different paths and twists and turns along the way.
Hmm.
So it's very normal. You don't have to have it all figured out the first time.
Yeah, that's true. We kind of, I feel like the pressure of society sometimes gets to you, where, as you said, you do kind of like start to compare yourself to others in like a similar kind of age range, and then you see that, and then you're like, oh, I need to be, in this position, or whatever. And yeah, and then, but yeah, if you look at yourself like in a very unique journey, then yeah, you'll be able to make more better decisions that are best suited to you, um, and not
Absolutely.
someone else. Mhm.
Hmm.
um, and then when it comes to coaching, what's one thing that you would say, or you would wish that people would understand more about coaching or coaches?
Hmm. Yeah, top of mind, I think the biggest thing I wish they would understand is that coaching, at least the way that I practice it, which is rooted in the ICF certification, um, it's not about advice giving. So I'm actually never giving advice to my clients. I'm actually helping create kind of this environment where we can both brainstorm. Um,
Mm.
I really believe that the client is the expert in their own life. I don't know them better than they know themselves. I don't know what they
Mhm.
should do better than what they know they should do. It's about
Mhm.
really creating that environment to extract that wisdom from them and really help them understand who they are, what's important to them, what are their values, and use
Mhm.
that as a compass to then make those next steps and decisions. And I think there's a really big misconception with coaches, because there are still a lot of uncertified coaches out there who do coach, and they call coaching just advice giving basically. And a lot of people think, well, how much more do you know that I don't know? Like, why should I be paying you for your specific expertise in your life? And coaching is not at all about that. It's really about creating an environment where you can reflect inwards and
Mm.
help you access answers that otherwise you actually get stuck on answering. Like you just can't go internally and answer them yourself. It's very, very difficult. Even for me as a
Mm.
coach who has been doing this for a few years, like very challenging to self-coach myself. I
Mm.
even work with coaches from time to time on things because I just know like I won't be able to access those answers if I try myself. You need that third party to kind of look at you from outward and notice patterns, notice potential limiting beliefs, and help you address them.
Mhm. Yeah, I think yeah, you made a very interesting point. Yeah, I think that's where people have a lot of misconceptions on coaches or even therapists is they just think that, oh, like, you're gonna listen to them and just give them advice, but that's not what it's all about. So yeah, thank you for explaining that, because I think that gives a lot of clarity on how coaching actually works and why you might need coaching as well. Yeah, another thing I just really wanted to mention here was also, I feel like a lot of people make this mistake as well, which is, asking for help or going to someone for help. So whether it's just, having a career coach or any kind of coach, basically business coach, because again, people think that, oh, like this, I should be able to figure this out by myself.
Mm,
And as you
mhm,
said, self coaching is very, very difficult. So yeah, I think even with myself, I have always had like that kind of belief where I'm like, okay, whatever I need, I can teach myself those skills, and it's all about having that kind of control over everything. But again, then that's something that eventually leads you to a burnout, because
mm,
you cannot manage everything by yourself. So it's really important to ask for help and get experts whenever you need to, whether it's
mhm,
a coach, whether it's someone else, like maybe a social media marketing manager, something like that.
mhm,
But
mhm.
yeah, there's no shame in asking for help.
No, no, not at all. And like that's the most beautiful part of coaching that again, I wish people realize like you are in the driver's seat. You are in control still, even in these types of coaching engagements. Like, it's helping you take it like 10 times further than you could by yourself. So you're still using that same approach of trying to build the skills yourself and figure it out yourself. But you have this beautiful like reflection or mirror that gets to show you everything that you're thinking and everything that you're trying, and really understanding what's working, what's not working, where might I be able to shift things. And then to your point about going to the help of experts, I think that's huge as well. I do that in my own life. Like outsourcing is one of the most important things to try to move forward, especially when you're talking about like multiple income streams. If you can get a cleaner to clean your house and that saves you a couple hours a week that you can spend doing something else that's more productive and that's going to grow your career further, why not, right? If you can get a social media marketer, a virtual assistant, right? Like whatever kind of service can help you. Of course it has to be reasonable, so it's not like you're spending more on it than the
Yeah.
benefit, right? Benefit versus cost, of course.
Mhm.
But yeah, there is absolutely no shame in asking for help, and that's like the whole point of all of us. I know this is going to sound kind of like spiritual, but all of us humans being here together, right? Like we have to lean on each other. That's the whole point. We weren't brought in here to be by ourselves and figure everything out by ourselves. Community is such a big, important thing. And I think we have to depend on each other for those types of things. That's I think, what creates a more successful society in general.
Hmm. Absolutely. And then what do the next couple of years look like for you? Do you have any ideas that you're exploring? Oh, any exciting projects that you're working on?
Yeah, absolutely. So, my focus is now kind of leaning towards. I've done a lot of one-on-one coaching with clients, and I've really seen how it's transformed their lives. I want to figure out a way to get that out on a grander scale. So, like, even helping people that, might not have the means to invest in a coach at that level,
Mhm.
helping people get access to that self reflection that I was speaking about, and kind of having almost like a coach in your pocket, but without having that big barrier to entry for a lot of people. So, yeah, that's kind of my next project. It's not fully thought out yet, but it's an idea that
Mhm.
I've really been playing with probably for a couple years already. But I feel like
Mhm.
I'm getting a bit closer to figuring out how that might work. So yeah, I think just like getting this beautiful modality that I've discovered and I've been trained in, like helping other people access that for themselves on a
Mhm.
larger scale.
No, that's brilliant, and I really look forward to how that turns out.
Thank you.
And then where can our listeners connect with you and learn about your work?
Yeah, absolutely. So, LinkedIn is probably the best place. I am probably going to be working on a website soon, so I'll have a proper website with kind of a landing page there. But LinkedIn is my website for now. So you can just type my first name, Sophia Kokileff. I'm sure you'll probably have it in the description somewhere.
Mhm.
And you can find me on there. I'm always open to connect. Like DM me. You can always email me. I think my email's up there somewhere too.
Mhm.
Yeah, always happy to connect with anyone, honestly, even one on
Mhm.
one.
Mhm.
Yeah, very, very
Oh,
happy
that's
to.
amazing.
Thanks for asking that.
Yeah, yeah. No, definitely. Yeah, I'll definitely mention the your LinkedIn profile in the description. So if anyone is interested, you can connect with Sophia on LinkedIn and ask about her work. But again, I just wanted to mention that thank you for coming on and thank you for sharing your background, your work so far, and also your very valuable advice for people kind of exploring different things in their lives, whether it's multi incomes or whether it's a passion. I think that was really interesting on how you explained about coaching as well, because I feel like people need to understand more on how coaching works or how coaches work. So thank you again for sharing your insights, and all the best. I look forward to seeing you and your next projects, and we'll definitely connect again soon.
Yeah, thank you so much for the kind words, Priya, and for having me on here. And likewise, looking forward to seeing all the great things that you do with this podcast and otherwise.
Thank you. And for our listeners, thanks for listening. And if you like the episode, feel free to comment, follow us, and subscribe. I'll mention the links in the description below. Thanks for watching or listening, and we'll see you again soon. If Sophia's journey inspired you to think differently about building your portfolio career, share this episode with someone who's ready to stop choosing between security and freedom. And if you want more conversations with women building multiple income streams their way, hit subscribe. Until next time, keep building, keep growing, and keep refusing to choose.